back. I'm glad that you're back and you are here for the second session. And we're very glad that you made it and you are making 1 hour out of your day to learn and to enrich your expertise and your skills so you can better support your child or your student. I'd like to introduce Dr. Appel, and he is our wonderful, awesome facilitator, teacher, mentor, and just person that listens and understands what needs we have and our kids have. So well, go ahead.
Oh gosh, Ms. Delgado, thank you so very much. That is very kind of you. I think I should take you everywhere that I go, especially home. I think you could probably tell my wife the same things. I think she would very much appreciate it. And I'm so happy to see all of you. And if I might ask either Mr. Dominguez or Ms. Simmons, if I could share the screen, please. I will get the presentation up and running for you, but certainly, as Ms. Delgado said, I know that even taking an hour out of your day is a lot to ask, and I'm really very happy that you are spending it here with us. Now, the last time we met, the last time we spoke, and over the last few sessions, actually, we sort of, took a look at
that's a great idea.
What we might call the state of the crew.
Have a little bit.
Oh, even I got muted. I was saying thank you for the mutation or the muting or the what have you. Thank you very much for that. But as I was mentioning in the last few sessions that we had attended together, we talked a lot about sort of cognitive and socio-emotional characteristics of high school students and really their readiness to embark on a journey into post-secondary education or the post-secondary experience. And when we talk about the post-secondary experience, and when we talk about education generally, really what we are talking about is dividing education into 3 parts. One being elementary, the second being secondary, which is middle school and high school, and then what we might call tertiary or post-secondary education, which has to do with those opportunities that follow high school. So this is the second part of the first series of a post-secondary odyssey, the landscape and preparing for the voyage ahead. And we got a sense of the state of the crew. Now really what we are looking at as the lay of the land. Again, this presentation is going to be available to you through Sweetwater Union High School District website. And certainly, as always, I am available at your immediate disposal for questions or concerns that you might have. And if they're not answered here live, I will be answering them through a shared spreadsheet where you can ask me just about anything that you like. So let's move on to our second session, which is entitled The Wine Dark Sea. And the wine dark sea actually comes from Homer. And one of the quotes from the Odyssey is, "And what if one of the gods does wreck me out on the wine dark sea? I have a heart that is injured to suffering, and I shall steel it to endure that too. For in my day, I have had many bitter and painful experiences in war and on the stormy seas." And while that might be somewhat dramatic as we look towards enrollment in college or other opportunities, what we understand is that in the epic poem, The Odyssey, the sea has enormous symbolic value. And it's a theme that recurs with frequency throughout the poem. So the sea represents life, victories, trials, challenges, and tribulations. And the sea also represents power, sometimes torment, and sometimes calm. And our mission here together is to really chart the wine dark sea of tertiary education and to look at the wide variety of opportunities that are available to our kids once they graduate from high school. Now, before we begin in earnest, you will see behind me that I am sitting in a library of a rather famous university. Now, if anybody can guess, you don't have to name the library, but if you can name the university and if you can put the name of the university in the chat, the first one to correctly name the university will receive a special present from UC San Diego. And I will give you a hint. This is not UC San Diego. So try and guess where I am today. Now, as we discussed the last time, and as we have discussed throughout our parent and caregiver education sessions, everything that we do here is good for the heart, good for the head, and good for the hands. And in our last session, we talked a lot about cognitive readiness. We talked a little bit about socio-emotional needs, and we talked a bit about motivation. And all of those things we are going to explore in greater detail in our third session, after we have sort of an idea where our kids can go after high school. But again, when we talk about head, heart, and hands, we're talking about intellectual harmony, we're talking about emotions, and we are talking about behaviors. And when we find ourselves at the intersection of head, heart, and hands, we know that when we talk about high performance, it's not only academic, and certainly if you're looking at certain types of colleges, academic performance is key, but also key is things like service to others, a love of learning, metacognitive skills, and here really navigating the sea, because when your kids get to a large university campus, if that's where they decide to go, or even a small college or another opportunity, it is going to be a very different life for them. And those skills that will help them navigate the landscape are going to be very important. And I will tell you that on any given day, outside of the pandemic, we were probably about 70,000 at UC San Diego alone. And that's not 70,000 students, that's faculty, staff, and students, and everybody else. But the size of a pretty good city, and it really is a different place to navigate. But let's talk a little bit about interest. We will also talk about something that we call multi-potentiality. When we looked at Da Vinci in our earlier sessions, we talked about Da Vinci as being a multi-potentiate, somebody who was not only interested in a lot of things, but great at a lot of things. And I think that we will find that the best way that we can support our students, our graduating students, or even those who are coming up through middle school, who are coming into high school, are trying to make a decision. And we know that in adolescence from our last sessions, that these interests can change frequently as we try to find an identity. But the good news is that whatever a person's interest is, whatever their interest in a career is, a course of study, or maybe a combination of different interests. So for example, if you are interested in management and you are interested in music and you are interested in law, perhaps there is a career and a pathway to that career that awaits you. And I think our colleges and universities are now more adept at combining careers. But if it's a traditional college or university, or if it is an alternative setting, there are pathways. And certainly at UC San Diego, even if you don't wind up coming to us, we are here to partner with you on that journey and really help you and your kids define what those interests are and how to get there. So in our later sessions, we're going to talk specifically about how to choose a route and how to choose a major. But right now, what we're going to look to see is what is out there for our secondary school graduates, for our high school graduates, or even our middle schoolers who are looking forward to the point at which they get out into the world, that they get out and to college. But again, you'll find that one of the issues with college is they ask you to declare a major coming in, and then they open up the entirety of the world to you and say, look at all of these great things, but you've already decided what you want to be. So we'll take a look at that too. But just for now, there is a really something for everyone here. And there are a plenitude of different types of schools. We're not even talking about alternatives to traditional post-secondary education. So for example, there are trade schools, and these tend to be hands-on. These are vocational, usually 2 years. If you think about automotive institutes, things like that, that is really what we're talking about. Related to trade schools are technical college, and these are more classroom oriented versus hands-on and vocational, and these also tend to be about 2 years, and they are usually private institutions with some exceptions. You will find that there are some sort of hands-on vocational majors that are available in community colleges, but for the most part, a lot of these are going to be private colleges. Then you have the 2-year and the 2 to 4 year colleges. And what do I mean by that? Well, usually when we talked about 2-year colleges, we were talking about the community colleges, but now a lot of community colleges are able to offer bachelor's degrees. So your local community college may offer a 2-year degree, and they may offer a 4-year degree. And a lot of this has to do with demand, the changing demand, especially here in California, where we have so many kids who are eligible for different opportunities. We have 4-year colleges. These are colleges that serve undergraduates. So freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors, no graduate degrees, primarily undergraduate. These are, in some cases, these are private liberal arts colleges. We have 4-year colleges that focus on research, but also primarily serve undergraduates. And then you have universities, which are primarily research-based. This is what you might see, and let's say like a San Diego State University, a Point Loma Nazarene, University of San Diego, UC San Diego. They are different types of universities, but have a research mission along with a teaching and service mission. So some of the 4-year colleges that you see may not have a research mission. They may be primarily centered on teaching. The idea for the big universities is that as our faculty does more research, they can teach it, they can share it with those who come to us. So already right out of the gate, you can see there are a variety of different opportunities. And even if you select one, you can always move on to the next. There are other things that are beyond traditional post-secondary routes. So there are apprenticeships. This is something that UC San Diego collaborates with a lot of partners in the workforce to offer academic and credit support for people who undertake apprenticeships in the workforce. There are professional content area certificates and certifications. That is something that we do through extended studies, where we have a very specific content area certifications where you have a high school student who can graduate with a university certificate and a high school diploma with a specialty in, let's say, something like technology or the life sciences, and can either go right into the workforce at a very decent entry-level salary, or get a head start in post-secondary education, or do both. So you don't necessarily need to pursue a degree. We find that in a lot of cases, certificates and certifications look like the future of post-secondary education. You'll also see something called massive online open courses. We call these MOOCs. They're self-paced, and they are, for the most part, free. And we'll talk a little bit more about MOOCs, but these are things that are offered through Coursera or Google. And a lot of these are written by eminent university faculty members and are available without cost. The only problem is that there are not live instructors. So if you have a question, you are in there with maybe 100,000 other interested students, and the instructor is not going to respond to a question. It usually is self-paced. You learn it yourself. There are things like volunteerism, gap year, travel, cause-based work. So for example, volunteering for a specialized cause. There are job training programs. There are coding boot camps where you can develop expertise very quickly and get a good head start. There's on-the-job training, there's internships, military service, and the Peace Corps. And the great thing about all of these types of opportunities is a lot of them can be combined with one another and combined with work that you would be doing at the university. So this idea of having a straight shot from high school to college to career, it's a little bit different than it was when I was growing up. Now, here's something to think about. Now, in the year 2020, 2021, there were over 6,000 colleges and universities in the United States alone. Now, if you compare that to the beginning of the last century, around 1900, about 100 years ago, there were fewer than 1,000. One of the things that we understand is that college is a big business, and really the number of colleges and universities reached a peak in 2011, but for a variety of reasons, and including recessions and some bad operators in the pack, there has been a bit of retrenchment, and some of the controversies that we've seen are very well known. And this doesn't even include the things like the college counseling scandals that we've seen. But when we look at the landscape of universities, and again, this is the US alone, this includes everything from small for-profit trade schools to big sweeping public university systems that offer things like undergraduate degrees, graduate degrees, licenses, and certificates. So college has really grown a lot. And again, some of these institutions are the major employers in their area. I know that UC San Diego certainly employs a lot of people in our area. In smaller college towns, they could be the primary employer. Now, in California, we wanted to make sure that there was access to higher education. And we wanted to make sure that everybody who could access it was able to access programs of exceptional quality. So the way that it used to be is there were all sorts of different types of colleges for every purpose. And in terms of being able to go from a community college to a state college or transfer, it wasn't that clear. We really didn't understand what the different levels of higher education were all about. So in 1960, the legislature and a number of experts developed what was called the California Master Plan for Higher Education. And the idea was to create a seamless continuum for higher education in California. Now, the California Master Plan for Higher Education has a lot of problems, and these problems have multiplied as the years have gone by. But the idea was that there is a role for the community colleges, a role from the California State University, and a role for the UCs as well as independent colleges and universities. And you can see here in this graphic that for the California community colleges, 100% of applicants to the California community colleges can get in. And the idea is that these are colleges that grant associate's degrees. Typically, these are 2-year colleges that are designed for vocational education and meeting requirements for transfer. But the idea is that it is universal access. And at the time that this study was done, about 72% of enrollment in higher education was enrolled at the community colleges. You have a phenomenal college not too far from you in terms of Southwestern College that we work very closely with. And for the California State University, which represents about 19% of all higher education enrollments in California. These are institutions that offer bachelor's degrees, master's degrees. Interesting thing about the California State University, they were founded as normal schools. And what are normal schools? Those were the schools that produced teachers. So they had a specific purpose way back when in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and that was to grant licenses and education for teachers. So you will find that teacher credentialing is still a very large part of the California State University system, but the idea is that they grant bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, teaching licenses, and others. And they have, just like UC has, an extension that offers professional credits and different types of continuing education. And the idea is, if you are in the California community colleges and you want to go to the California State University, you should have a 2.0 GPA and perhaps an AA, and you can transfer, so you can move forward. I was a product of the California community colleges because I was not mature enough at the time to go to a larger institution. And I was able to find an academic voice as well as a metacognitive voice by being in a place that allowed me to mature. Now, University of California has a very specific role. Top 12.5% of entering freshmen. So the idea is that these are the top 12.5% of graduating high school students. About 8% of all enrollments in higher education in California are at the UCs. UCs grant bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, professional degrees. So you will find that the University of California is where you will find medical schools, pharmacy schools, law schools, as well as granting the PhDs. Now, over the course of the years, the master plan has been modified significantly. So you will see California community colleges that are offering bachelor's degrees. You will see Cal State universities that are offering doctoral degrees, and UC campuses that are doing something very different. But the reason for mentioning this is that there is a plan in California for public higher education, and this plan also explored a role for the private schools. So when we think of places like USC, USD, Point Loma, and others, Loyola Marymount, Pepperdine, that they also have a role. So the word college itself has origins in antiquity, which resonates well with our exploration of Homer's Odyssey. And it is really derived from the Latin. There are two terms in the Latin. So a collegium, way back in ancient Rome, where it's first started, was the practice of bringing selected people to work together with one another. Usually this referred to professional guilds like blacksmiths and things like that, sword makers, carriage builders, chariot builders, or religious orders. But the idea of the collegium is where people come together. So when we look at post-secondary education, the term college can be confusing because a college can be a freestanding small institution or a large part of a larger institution. So if you look at Dartmouth College, for example, Dartmouth College, interestingly, is a university, but never changed its name. But it is a small college that is part of the Ivy League. Now, at UC San Diego, we have a College of Medicine, and we have a College of Arts and Sciences. To make things even more confusing, when I went down to Mexico to work with educators there, I kept talking about, I work for a UC San Diego, a colegio. And they're like, no, that's not what that is. So In the United Kingdom, throughout Mexico and throughout Latin America, the word college is also used to talk about educational institutions that serve ages 14 through 19. Colleges can be private. Colleges can be publicly supported. And when somebody asks you, what are your plans after high school? Are you going to college? Well, that refers really to everything related to higher education. So are you thinking about college? Are you going to go away to college? So college can mean a lot of different types of things. And there are a lot of different types of colleges, public versus private. And within private, there are for-profit versus nonprofit. And certainly we know a lot about some of the messes that for-profit institutions get into. We're going to talk about that in a little bit greater depth. You have 2-year and 2-year, 4-year colleges. And these are colleges, typically community colleges, vocational colleges, or career tech colleges. They grant certificates and associate's degrees, and again, in some cases, bachelor's degrees. So sometimes they can be 4 years. Now, you may hear the term liberal arts colleges, and this is a broad-based curriculum in things like literature, history, languages, mathematics, and the life sciences. And they're designed to prepare students for careers or graduate studies. These institutions are usually private, and they usually just grant bachelor's degrees. So they're not granting master's degrees or advanced degrees. Liberal arts education is something that you may also hear. On top of all of that are the special focus colleges. These are usually private. There are a few public ones, but for the most part, they're private. They include emphases in the arts. So you can think of something like Juilliard, a seminary, for example, a focus on religion, or a specialized mission. So you think about places like West Point or Annapolis or the Air Force Academy. You think of historically Black colleges and universities that have a very different type of focus, and single-sex colleges, and these traditionally grant bachelor's degrees. And sometimes these individual smaller colleges may be part of a consortium. My wife and I, at one time, both attended the Claremont colleges, which is by Pomona, includes Pomona College. I was going to the graduate school that served all of the different smaller colleges, but each of the colleges had a different emphasis. And there were Pomona College and Pitzer College and Harvey Mudd College only granting bachelor's degrees. So that is a little bit about college. Is college the same as university? Well, kind of and kind of not. If we look at the origin of the term university, it also comes from the Latin word universus and universitas, meaning whole or entire. So if you think about the universe is really what we are talking about. Now, there is research out there, and I studied post-secondary education for quite a while in my doctoral experience, and we typically would attribute the origins of the university to European monks in medieval times. But as the research progressed, we found that the very first university, as we know it, was likely founded by an Egyptian woman as early as 972 AD. So again, very ancient origins, and in some cases, we are very slow to change. Okay, so let me move forward here. Types of universities, again, they can be public or private. So you have places like UCLA, and you also have places like USC, for-profit versus not-for-profit. Difference between some of the colleges about which we were talking and universities is that universities, for the most part, are either focused on research or a combination of research, teaching, and service, as well as granting advanced degrees. And these are typically places where you will start out in your freshman and sophomore years in large lecture halls with 400 or so other students like you, and you will register in sections to get a clear idea. You'll have a teaching assistant who will deliver a lot of the primary instruction, again, because the emphasis for these institutions is research, and part of the criteria that determines whether we will continue if you don't have tenure, which is sort of a guaranteed lifetime position, has to do with how much research you do, how much you publish, a little bit less so than the teaching or service in which you are engaged. Now, there are different classifications of universities, and this emerges from something called the Carnegie classification, and that was the foundation that developed this framework back in 1970. And what they did is they evaluated institutions based on enrollment and funding and a variety of other different criteria. So for universities, you have universities with very high research activity, which are called R1, and that is UC San Diego. High research activity, which is probably some of the Cal States, R2s, and doctoral and professional universities. So those with medical schools or law schools. And then there are universities that solely grant master's degrees. The larger ones, the bigger ones, San Diego State, San Francisco State, Cal State, LA, are referred to as M1s. Smaller ones on medium ones, M2 and M3, and really based on the number of degrees awarded. So the criteria for success for each of these institutions is very different. So you can imagine if you have a kid who's really interested in doing hands-on types of research and going to be a professor or running a lab, you may make different types of decisions about where you would like to see your child go. Now, here's some things that we can talk a little bit about. The Ivy League, there is a lot of talk about the Ivy League. The Ivy League, I think, is very well known to most Americans. It contains all the biggies, places like Harvard, Columbia, Brown, Princeton, Dartmouth, and Yale. Both of my sisters went to Yale, and afterwards one of them went to Stanford and then to Columbia. I went to Yale as well when I went to visit them, and I got a sweatshirt, which made me very happy. But these colleges are typically referred to as the Ancient Eight, and these are private elite colleges, universities on the East Coast with incredibly selective admissions, known for academic excellence and also a little bit for social elitism. These were founded during the colonial period, so very old, some of the very first institutions in this country. For example, both Harvard and Yale were actually part of the British system. Harvard came to be in 1636 under a different name. The exception is Cornell. Cornell came a little bit later in 1865, but is still part of the Ivy League, and it's comparable to places like Oxford and Cambridge in the United Kingdom. Why are they called the Ivy League? Well, there's a lot of ideas about that. Some people will say, well, there's ivy all over the walls. Yeah, but not necessarily true. Some people said, well, it's an athletic league that only started with 4, and they used the Latin I and V to represent 4. That is just folk wisdom. That is not true in the slightest. It actually dates back to an old tradition called the planting of the ivy. And that is how it came to be. And the Ivy is actually the athletic conference to which all of these institutions belong. Now, you might say, it is going to be a tough road to hoe to get kids into these institutions? And what if we can't find a place that will give them an equal education? There are known as what are called public Ivies, and these are institutions that are public institutions that are comparable in terms of rigor, student experience, quality of faculty, among other criteria. So these are public universities, and quite happily, UC San Diego is among them. So UC San Diego is known to be a public Ivy. So again, you don't necessarily need to go to Brown or to Princeton to get a quality of education associated with either two of those institutions. Now, a lot of questions that people have are about the difference between extension or extended studies and the campus, because people will say, I don't understand, you can't get a degree through extension, but you're still part of the campus, or you're not part of the campus, and what is your relationship to campus? Now, I am a dean at Extended Studies, and really have worked primarily with a short exception for working for a School of the Arts, have worked in extended studies for the last 20 or so years. And extended studies is a division within the university, but it has a very different mission and a very different source of funding. So extensions for public universities do not take state funds. They are all self-supporting. We raise our own money through tuition and grants and other different types of sources. And usually these are courses for non-matriculated college and university students. That means you don't have to apply to the university and take the SAT or take the LSAT to be able to participate in our courses or in our programs. Most extended studies, with few exceptions, and even us, don't grant degrees. We do things like specialized professional certificates, licenses for teachers and licenses for administrators, paralegal programs, so certificates and certifications for working professionals, pre-college pathway programs, which is something that we do at Education Community Outreach, parent and community programs, something like this that we offer without charge to advance the cause of community. And in some cases, we do offer advanced degrees or courses for undergraduate students. We admitted, I think, about 52,000 people this last year. And our campus has only so much capacity. So there are also special programs that our faculty want to be able to do, but don't have the infrastructure to support it. And that is something that we provide. So some of the opportunities that we spoke of very early in the presentation, this idea to get specialized workforce training that will allow you to go into a rather lucrative entry-level position, so something in the life sciences or something in technology or even in business and management, those things happen through extension. So it's a bit different, but still a part. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about massive open online courses, or MOOCs. I remember being part of this movement very early on, back in the Stone Age, when we were still looking at whether courses could be put online, and if so, how would we do it? We actually used to send, and I don't know if anybody remembers CDs, but we used to send CDs and videotapes through the mail, and we thought maybe there is a better way. So what these are free online courses available for open enrollment. You don't need to fill out an application. You don't need to pay. You just pop on and enroll yourself. They are typically self-paced, which means there is an instructor who wrote it. And if there is a link that is broken, so let's say it's linking to something else, there's probably going to be somebody to fix it. But if you have a question about the content, you won't get an answer. These are open courses that sometimes enroll upwards of 100,000 people, and they're designed by university faculty. In some cases, I know that we do a lot of that. I think Stanford does a lot of that, other institutions and industry professionals. No limits on attendance. There's also no chat feature, so you're not going to be able to really communicate with other students. In some cases, you'd be able to earn credit. I think there is an option where people can buy credit or certification upon completion. These are offered through providers like Coursera or edX. Google has its own free content, as does LinkedIn. You can also think about one of these as like Duolingo, the program that allows you to learn different languages and sort of takes you through and may issue sort of a badge when you're done. But these aren't courses that include transferable credit, and they may be able to advance somebody professionally if they're in a specific content area, but it's usually to explore areas of career interest. So don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking MOOCs at all. I think it's a great way to sort of test the waters and explore interests. So I'd encourage you all to sort of pop onto Coursera and see what they have to offer. One of the things, if you or your kids are thinking about a college or a university, and I think everybody here is pretty aware of the college admissions scandals of late, and some of the institutions that have charged arm and a leg, and then they will shut down or their credit is not valuable. One of the ways that you can ensure that the institution you're exploring has integrity is by looking at accreditation. Now, Sweetwater Union High School District, UC San Diego, Southwestern colleges, we are all accredited institutions. And what accreditation is, it's a process by which institutions are evaluated to make sure that they are provided with quality curriculum and instruction and meaningful education experiences. So you may hear teachers or administrators or faculty talking about a WASC accreditation. And the reason that there are these organizations is because federal and state oversight for higher education is somewhat loose. So there was a need for independent bodies to come and take a look. So they are typically peers, and some of them are national accreditation, some of them are regional, as is WASC, which looks after high schools and colleges, or programmatic, or all three. So UC San Diego has WASC accreditation, but we are also accredited by the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing to offer coursework for licenses and certificates. So as you are exploring options, and again, we're going to dive into this in greater detail later on in the series, but you're going to want to make sure that, number one, that these are accredited institutions, and you're going to want to look at the accrediting agency. So there's a big difference between the Western Association of Schools and Colleges and, Uncle Bob's accreditation service. Why is this important? Well, one is for financial aid, availability of financial aid, and later employment. This begs the question about diploma mills. This is not a recent issue. This stems all the way back to the turn of the last century. And what you are looking at is a picture of the Philadelphia Physician Factory. And this was the idea that doctors in Philadelphia around the turn of the century were being trained so quickly they lacked experience, and that these medical colleges that were springing up on every corner were just issuing medical licenses and medical degrees. As you can see, chemistry, 5-minute course fee, $250, surgery course fee, 25 cents. So this is a problem that's existed for a while. So one of the things that you got to think about is, if your kids bring you home brochures, or if you see something on TV that really looks too good to be true, it likely is. So what do I mean by a diploma mill? Well, this is a college or university or institution that is more interested in your money than your success. They make promises of easy financial aid. A lot of them prey on veterans because of the availability of the GI Bill. They're unaccredited or accredited by questionable agencies and maybe a lot of agencies. And they grant licenses or degrees for a high fee. So if it says you can earn your medical degree in 2 months, you're probably looking at a diploma mill. A lot of these have been shut down of late. A lot of these institutions with questionable qualifications, they have been shut down by state agencies or sometimes federal agencies. Easy admission and credits that are unlikely to transfer. So if you do wind up in a situation where you are exploring a private institution, a for-profit institution, make sure you understand, or even when you are going to a public institution, continuing education, make sure that the units that you earn are transferable, and make sure the degrees are not usually worth the paper upon which they are printed. So, if you are going into a profession and the university basically started yesterday, you may have a bit of a more difficult time becoming employed. So let's take a look before we break out a little bit to talk about things. How much is it going to cost is always the question. So average annual tuition, this is not with books, this is not room and board, this is just the price of entry for a private college, $43,775. You look at Harvard, I think it was around $59,000, but a place like Harvard can usually offset a lot of that through grants and fellowships. Public colleges, if you are paying out of state, so let's say you want to go to the University of Colorado and you live in California, around $28,000. In-state public college tuition, Cal State San Marcos, UC San Diego, UC Riverside, around $11,000 to $12,000. Again, this is just tuition. This is not room and board. Community colleges, really an incredible bargain. $3,770. Again, no room and board or cost of books and materials. I remember when I was just starting my journey in post-secondary education, I was talking to my mother, who was not only a faculty member at UC Berkeley, but had attended UC Berkeley at a time when the University of California was free of charge. And I said, well, how much did you have to pay every year? And she said, I had to pay $100 for books, but everything else was free. Things have definitely changed, but the public institutions are most certainly a value for money proposition. Now, financial aid, very, very, very important. A large part of life's decision is about how you will pay. And one of the sessions that we are going to have coming up is looking at things like grants and scholarships and work study and federal loans. But I want you to think about something because it's very sobering. And you know what? I am caught up in this just as much as anyone. I'm just as guilty. Student loan debt for 2021 is in excess of $1.7 trillion spread across some 45 million borrowers. It is very important before you embark on a decision to take out student loans, whether it is your kids taking them out or you taking them out for them, that you understand really what it is all about. You can graduate with a lot of debt and really never, ever finish paying it off. So it is so very, very important to think about that. And we'll go through the different kinds of aid that are available to you. But we know that student loan debt is only second to mortgage debt in the United States among consumers. It is greater than credit card debt and mortgage debt combined. All right, so I know we promised some breakout time, so I will ask Mr. Dominguez to come back, please, because he is sort of the master of the breakout sessions. But what I'd like you to do, and it's a very simple task, and the idea here is based on what you've learned from last session, based on sort of a review of what we did over the last sessions, and this overview of the landscape for post-secondary opportunities. Do you have questions that come out of this? Have your ideas about what to do after high school and your kids' ideas what to do after high school have changed? So Mr. Dominguez, if you could kindly break people out into different rooms, and then what we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about what you found, and then we will make sure that your questions get answered.
Thank you very much, Dr. Appel. As Dr. Appel mentioned, we are going to be putting you into breakout rooms. I did ask the question on the chat if anybody needed a group that was in Spanish. If they've already let me know on the chat or raised their hand, I've put them in a breakout room in Spanish with other Spanish speakers. If you did not, then I'm assuming that you are an English speaker and you will be placed in a room with other English speakers. I've also put in the question that Dr. Appel asked in the main chat for you to have so that you can actually take a look at it. Okay. Let me just make one quick change and I will go ahead and start putting you into breakout rooms. Okay, just 1 second. Okay, let me go ahead and do that. Okay, I'm going to make one change really right now. Hold on. Miriam Montoya. Okay, hold on. And just making one quick change to some of the names. Okay, let me go ahead and just make a quick change.
And Mr. Dominguez, while you are making some changes, it looks as though we have a winner for the what library is this? And it looks like Gabriela guessed that it was the library at Oxford. You are absolutely right, Gabriela. So make sure to send me an email. I'll put it in the chat and we'll make sure to route your prize to you.
Okay, let me go ahead. There's a couple other people who've just mentioned that they would like to have it in Spanish. So I'm trying to go over those names so that they're not placed in the incorrect rooms. But just give me one more second.
Okay, and I am going to just check here if there are any questions that I can answer in the interim. So just want to make sure that nobody has any immediate questions. But again, this is really just scratching the surface. There are so many different opportunities, and we'll make sure that as we move forward, we'll look at how we can combine these opportunities. So how, for example, can you combine on-the-job training with a traditional college or university?
Okay, let me go ahead and open up the rooms and we will start from here. Good afternoon. Gracias por venir. Thank you for being here. The purpose of our group is to discuss the question that Dr. Appel mentioned, which is what questions do you have? What is it that what are you wondering that, what sort of things are you still thinking about based on the information? Okay. Como les dije, la pregunta que preguntó el doctor Apel es, por ejemplo, ¿qué preguntas les quedan? ¿Qué cosas todavía tienen? ¿Qué inquietudes? Entonces, si tienen alguna de esas preguntas o si quieren platicar sobre lo que han aprendido, ese es el momento. If you are, if you have any questions about, uh, what he's sort of mentioned already, or if you have any ideas or, further concerns, this is the time to bring him up. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. The rest of the teams are in a breakout room, but we're actually going to be closing those in a second. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming back. We're slowly coming back. I hope your conversations were as fruitful as some of the ones that I heard. We're waiting for everybody else to show back up. If you have any questions regarding what the previous presentation session one from last week or this week, please put them in the chat. That way we can keep track of them. Any questions in Spanish or English, just throw them in there. I heard from one of the groups that they wanted to understand more about college athletes, Dr. Appel. So I don't know anything about that necessarily because I wasn't an athlete, growing up. My brother and my family were, but I wasn't. I was the one that would sit in the room and read books. So I know somebody out there knows a lot more about that in your profession that would be able to counsel us on that.
Well, fear not, Mr. Dominguez, because we are in one of our upcoming sessions. We are going to talk about college athletes. We're going to talk about the NCAA, and we will talk about athletic scholarships and all of that sort of thing. So whether you are playing college football or whether you are playing field hockey or a runner or soccer, we will definitely cover that. Habril, I see your question oh gosh, and then it just disappeared, but I think it is really about determining goals and determining pathways forward. And usually those can be cultivated as early as probably late elementary school, where kids start to formulate ideas. Do you know why they canceled Compact for Success or whether they will bring it back? I don't, but I can look into that for you, certainly. But definitely, we will definitely cover college athletics, athletic scholarships, and the criteria for that. And I saw a question about an agreement between Sweetwater and San Diego State. Unfortunately, I can't speak to that from either side of the house, but I think Ms. Delgado is including something. So back to you, Mr. Dominguez, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just on the compact. The compact is still in existence, but the guidelines have changed a little bit. What I can do is we can have the document that was last sent out to all parents regarding our compact uploaded on our website so people can have access to it. You should have received a letter, but maybe some of you did not. So we can upload that letter from the assistant superintendent explaining what the new criteria is going to be.
Okay, and I saw a quick thing about how do you get into the Ivy League schools. So in one of our next sessions, again, this was just an overview, but we'll talk about a pathway to the Ivy League or to the public Ivies or those institutions that are comparable to the Ivy League. We'll also talk a little bit about Oxford and Cambridge if anybody is interested in that. Okay, Mr. Dominguez, did we want to sort of cover what came from the groups? I can certainly tell you there were some really compelling questions from ours about the Ivy League and public Ivies. I think public Ivies is a term that is new to a lot of us. It was fairly new to me, and there was a marvelous conversation that was really catching steam as we entered back into the main room about the value of AP. And one of the things that we are working on with a number of our district partners is rather than taking AP courses, we can actually maybe offer college courses in high schools, actual college courses. So you would have transfer credit across the University of California system. So that's an option to AP.
Dr. Appel, I didn't have too much time to be in the different groups. I was trying to jump in just to make sure that, the conversation was going, but I did hear, groups asking, for example, as I said, about the admission criteria for athletes.
Mhm.
I forgot what the other questions were that I was able to listen into, but I
Sure.
asked them to put them on the chat. So if anybody wants a question in Spanish or in English, if they want to answer, we can definitely answer it either right now or later. One of the other comments is, where can we see this recording? And we put the link on our page. As soon as we are done, I will download the video and I will make it fancy, and then I'll put it in there within probably like no more than 48 hours. It just takes a little bit of time to get all that done, but we'll put that in there as well. One of the things, one of the questions that did come up, I remember now, is regarding community college and if
Mhm.
those are actually free or not.
I believe that they are in the process of trying to make them free, and there are a lot of institutional work that we're doing at the UC that we can also make it free. There are different compacts and different programs. I think the idea is at a federal level to make the first 2 years of college free for everyone. And I will tell you, the community college is a marvelous place, not only because of costs, because it also allows you to get through general education in a way that you may not be able to get into classes at the larger universities, simply because of demand. And it also affords, if your kids need additional time to sort of find themselves and find their way and really get committed to post-secondary education, it is a great place to go. Again, I came out of the community colleges and then eventually found my way to the University of California, but we will talk about those types of journeys. I also saw that there were questions about what kinds of courses do I need to take? So people may have heard things about A through G, A through H, those sorts of things, and what does that mean, and what kinds of courses qualify for that. So we'll go through all of that. So criteria for admission, courses. We'll look at GPAs. I think there was a question about the value of community service. We'll look at community service. We'll look at writing essays, but I haven't forgotten about all of the other different types of post-secondary opportunities that are available. Again, one of the things that I forgot from our big group, our little group, was asking about MOOCs. MOOCs, I think, are somewhat unfamiliar, so we'll look at those a little bit closer too.
And then one of the other questions that did come up, and I haven't seen it on the chat, is regarding the like, when should they start applying for universities? My understanding is every university system has a different timeline, right? Some of them all were worth, I remember from me applying around November, but they are just different timelines, right?
There are different timelines depending on the system. If it is a private university, it may be a bit different. But you can always find out that information at the university's website. They will talk about when applications are open. But even if you're not going to be applying for another 2 years, it doesn't hurt to practice. And one of the things that we do when we engage in college counseling is the idea is to get in the routine. How do you write an essay? How do you do an interview? Not all colleges and universities will require an interview, but you better believe if you're going to Brown or Harvard or Yale, you should be prepared to be able to offer an articulate interview. So again, the best place to find out about admissions deadlines and application openings is at each site. I remember when I was applying to the UC in the mid-1980s, it was all done on paper, and you had to pay separately for each UC campus to which you wanted to apply. Things are very different. Alejandra, thank you for joining us. Safe travels to pick up your granddaughter.
Okay, if you have any other questions, please write them in the chat. As I said, we're going to be taking these, compiling them and making them into a sheet that we will then present to Dr. Appel. And then afterwards, once we get them all answered, we'll put them on our website so all parents can benefit from these wonderful questions that they can actually take a look at. Dr. Appel, anything else before we go?
No, nothing from me except again to thank everyone for your kind attention and for taking an hour out of your day. Here is my email. So I know you're going to be compiling questions, but if somebody has a very, very specific question, always feel free to email me. And I think Mr. Dominguez and Ms. Simmons and Ms. Delgado will tell you I will get back to you same day.
He's really good about that. Ms. Delgado?
I think she's looking in the building. Oh, there she.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I was having a different conversation. What was the question? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we're about to go ahead and close our wonderful session with Dr. Appel. I just want to see if you wanted to add anything before we go.
Yes, thank you everyone for your participation, and we will have those answers to your questions out soon. And I thought it was a great session, Dr. Appel, and
Thank you.
I can't wait till next week.
Yes, and Gabriela, please send me an email and we will send you your prize. Great guest,
Thank you.
library at Oxford University.
Well, thank you very much for showing up, everybody. We do appreciate all your time and for joining us in this journey. We do have our next workshop on October 26th, which is next Tuesday at same time, 1 to 2. Please register if you haven't done so already. I know that we asked you to register for each one of the sessions, but that's just to get a better understanding of what we might want to be able to follow up in later months. Maybe we'll have to do a second round of something to make sure that everybody gets a chance to really get their in-depth that they want. But please join us next Tuesday, October 26th. This recording will be up on our website in the next couple of days, and look out for any further updates from Parent University. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.